The Democrats just might be starting to realize their monumental mistake in installing Kamala Harris as their presidential candidate, along with Tim Jazz Hands Walz as her running mate. Turns out even leftist voters want more than promises of joy from their next potential president. Let's get into it. Welcome to my channel. Before we get into the video, please be sure to like and subscribe and make sure your notifications are turned on so that you never miss the conversations that we have like this one. So despite Kamala Harris being selected as this candidate that's supposed to make history for women and then picking Tim Walz for who knows what reason, it's becoming obvious that just being a woman and being a man who can cheer louder than anybody else in the room might work well if you're running for your local PTA, but it's not really going to cut it if you're running to be president of the United States. As I'm sure most of you have seen by now, they've both done a slew of interviews lately, which is usually supposed to be something that's going to help us get to know candidates better and hopefully increase support for them, and also help their potential voters be able to articulate a more clear answer when asked, why are you supporting this person? However, it seems like the more these two talk, the worse things get for them. I'm sure most of you have seen at least some of the clips from the disastrous 60 Minutes interview that Kamala Harris did, where she avoided Bill Whitaker's questions about the border and tried to distract from the accurate points that he was making about the fact that the number of illegal immigrant crossings have quadrupled under the Biden-Harris administration. She also gave word salad answers when asked about the economy, and then her answer about Israel was so bad that 60 Minutes had to go back and edit it to something else later, even though the edited answer wasn't any better. My favorite clip, however, was the one where she owned herself completely on how she herself became the Democrat candidate. And this, to me, is just one of the many demonstrations of how she and the rest of the Democrat Party truly think that their voters are.
It's an election, Bill. And I take it seriously that I have to earn everyone's vote. This is an election for president of the United States. No one should be able to take for granted that they can just declare themselves a candidate and automatically receive support. You have to earn it. And that's what I intend to do.
Now, the reason the left does things like this is to distract people from the fact that they claim to be against or that they claim to think is absurd, which is why she is talking about the absurd idea of just being selected as a candidate, because that's exactly how she got where she is today. But moving on, Tim Walz had his own little stint on 60 Minutes, and a favorite clip, of course, is when he was asked again about lying about being at Tiananmen Square during the massacre.
In your debate with J.D. Vance, you said, I'm a knucklehead at times. And I think you were referring to the time that you said that you were in Hong Kong during the Tiananmen Square unrest when you were not.
Yeah.
Is that kind of misrepresentation, isn't that more than just being a knucklehead?
I think folks know who I am, and I think they know the difference between someone expressing emotion, telling a story, getting a date wrong rather than a pathological liar like Donald Trump.
But I think it comes down to the question of whether you can be trusted to tell the truth.
Yeah, well, I can. I think I can. I will own up to being a knucklehead at times, but the folks closest to me know that I keep my word.
I think the fact that every single member of Tim Walz's family has come out in support of Trump says everything we need to know. But this shows just how much both of these people always seem to think that the media is 100% on their side at all times. And granted, that is the case about 98% of the time, but they are completely shocked and thrown off balance anytime that they are pushed on anything or held accountable for their very obvious and blatant failures, which is why they both do better on platforms that don't require them to be substantive and where the audience is pretty much just going to eat up whatever load of crap is laid out in front of them. As we know, Kamala did the interview on the Call Her Daddy podcast, which host Alex Cooper actually did receive a lot of backlash for because her audience really wants to be able to enjoy her content without being bombarded with political messaging like we are everywhere else. Not to mention there were a lot of people that came out and acknowledged that this particular platform was not appropriate for a presidential candidate to be campaigning on. But considering the subject matter that this particular podcast is known for, it was really interesting when Kamala Harris told Alex Cooper that she thinks her audience really knows how to talk about the things that matter most to everyday people. In that same vein of doing things that are wholly inappropriate for a presidential candidate to be doing on TV, it was less than impressive when Kamala Harris went on with Stephen Colbert. And mind you, this is all going on while hurricane victims are still trying to dig their loved ones out from under whatever is left of their communities that just got washed away due to this historic weather event. And they just heard from this administration admitting that they are running out of money to be able to even help them. So you can imagine the terrible optics of simultaneously being in that position while watching somebody who wants to be president of the United States and therefore lead all future responses to the challenges of American people, sitting down with a late night talk show host and having a beer.
Old saws is they just want somebody they can have a beer with. So would you like to have a beer with me so I can tell people what that's like? Okay. This was, now we asked ahead of time because I can't just be giving a drink to the Vice President of the United States without asking. You asked for Miller High Life. You asked for Miller High Life. I'm just curious.
Okay, the last time I had beer was at a baseball game with Doug.
Okay, so cheers. There
cheers.
You go. There you go. Ooh. That tastes like the beautiful city of Milwaukee,
The
Wisconsin.
champagne and beers.
There you go.
Just to be clear, Stephen Colbert, no, the standard I have for selecting the next president of the United States and who I vote for has nothing to do with whether or not I can sit down and have a beer with them, never mind the fact that I actually don't drink. But I'd actually like someone who knows that there's a time and a place for everything, when there's a time to kick off your shoes and relax, and when there's a time to be taken seriously. And Kamala Harris seems to have a really hard time setting that boundary. Also, in that same conversation, Kamala was asked about this campaign of change that people are hanging their hats on. People can't afford food. They can't afford housing. Their college kids are looking at the state of things around them and realizing they're probably going to have to live the rest of their lives in their parents' basement because they're not going to be able to afford to do anything other than that. There are also countless communities being crippled by the invasion of illegal immigrants, dealing with skyrocketing crime, draining of resources, overwhelmed schools and shelters, and all of these things that real people are facing and hoping and praying that the future is going to look a lot brighter and a lot different than what we've seen over the last 4 years. But when asked about that change, this is what she had to say.
A lot of people, especially independent voters, really want this to be a change election. And that they tend to break for you in terms of thinking about change. You are a member of the President administration. Under a Harris administration, what would the major changes be and what would stay the same?
Sure. Well, I mean, I'm obviously not Joe Biden.
I noticed.
And so that would be one change in terms of, but also I think it's important to say with, 28 days to go, I'm not Donald Trump. And so when we think about the significance of what this next generation of leadership looks like, were I to be elected president, it is about, frankly, I love the American people, and I believe in our country. I love that it is our character and nature to be an ambitious people. We have aspirations, we have dreams, we have incredible work ethic, and I just believe that we can create and build upon the success we've achieved in a way that we continue to grow opportunity and in that way grow the strength of our nation.
So this is obviously pretty much the same speech that she delivered to Oprah's audience when there were, again, several people asking her, what is she going to do to improve the economy going forward? How is she going to make things different? And is life going to be better under her administration or more of the same? And all we get from that answer is talking about dreams and promising not to be Donald Trump, which obviously, again, speaks to how dumb that these people think we are, because they think that answer is going to suffice when we go to the grocery store and can't buy food, or go to the gas station and can only afford to fill up like a quarter of the tank. And when she went on an interview on The View, where we should all be getting our opinions and views and guidance from on a daily basis, because the hags of The View are so well versed in all things politics and morality, Sunny Hostin asked her the question, would you have done anything differently from the last 4 years? And I think Kamala Harris gave about the worst answer she could possibly have given to this question.
Would you have done something differently than President Biden during the past 4 years?
There is not a thing that comes to mind in terms of, and I've been a part of most of the decisions that have had impact.
So again, nobody can afford anything, no one feels safe, we're on our way to World War III, yet Kamala apparently feels like they've just hit it out of the park in the last 4 years. I think that says it all, my friends. But in an attempt to try and save her butt, she is starting to trot out the celebrities again. And to anybody that says that no one is going to vote based on what somebody in Hollywood tells them, that's extremely naive, because the only reason she is using these people out of Hollywood is to sway people to vote a particular way. So this is what Julia Roberts had to tell us.
I just hope that all the women here tonight talk to all the men that aren't here tonight, and all you brave men that are here tonight. Talk to all the other men that aren't here tonight. And let's just get it going. Enough with the fighting. Let's get to the uniting. Let's get to the joy. Let's get to the repair. Let's get to prices dropping, rents dropping. Let's get to the good stuff so we can start living our lives to the fullest potential that we have.
See, the thing is, most of us would love to get back to living our lives and the fullest potential that we have, but unlike you, Miss Julia Roberts, we can't do much enjoying of anything because most of us have to work 2 to 4 jobs within our household just to survive this economy, and we can't even enjoy the smallest of luxuries because the Biden-Harris administration has made it impossible to do anything besides pay bills and work. So after all of these interviews, Kamala Harris is losing ground, and she is losing quickly, and Democrats are starting to panic a little bit.
What is with all of this bedwetting among Democrats? Maybe it's an eternal problem, but let's take a look here. These are, of course, the Great Lake battleground states, the states we've been focusing in on. If Kamala Harris wins these 3, she most likely gets to 270 electoral votes. Take a look 3 weeks ago. Harris was ahead by 2 in Pennsylvania, 2 in Wisconsin, 3 in Michigan. Look at where we are today. The race is even tighter than it was. Today, it's a 1-point advantage in Pennsylvania, 1 in Wisconsin, 1 in Michigan. Look, that's limited movement, but in a year in which this race has been so static, we're talking 1-point movement, 1-point movement, 2-point movements, and we see movements in all 3. This is the type of thing that, at least in the public polling, makes Democrats worried. And I think that the public polling in this case is reflected in some of that internal polling, some of that reporting that suggests that these Great Lake battleground states have certainly tightened a lot, where at this point they are way too close.
I think it's safe to say that the more Kamala talks, the more people don't like her, and they realize that she is completely unqualified to do this job, and trying to hide constantly behind the Hollywood celebrities is having the opposite effect that she is hoping for, because people don't see it as her being so important and so connected that even the most people in the most powerful circles in America want to hang out with her and support her. They see it as a curtain to hide behind and to use people who are already popular to create a false sense of importance for herself, because it's something she wouldn't be able to achieve on her own. And it really only amplifies how incapable she is, because she wouldn't have even been considered for this role if it weren't for people who already have money, who are already household names, and who already have fame, as well as the media pushing, pulling, and editing her along the way. And we need people to realize that the audience a candidate spends the most time with are the people that they plan to serve. So is Kamala spending time with regular people, or is she spending more time with celebrities? Just something to think about. So again, I just have to pose the question. Do you think the Democrats overplayed their hand? Did they rely once again too much on identity politics, hoping that because she's a woman that isn't white, that everybody would just ignore the fact that their candidates are 2 of the most shallow, uneducated people on planet Earth? But just to end on a little bit of a lighter note, I know people love to get creative with some of these clips, and this is based on the interaction between her and Sunny Hostin, and we just have to enjoy it.
Would you have done something differently than President Biden during the past 4 years?
There is not a thing that comes to mind in terms of, and I've been a part of most of the decisions that have had impact.
And there's just one more.
Would you have done something differently than President Biden during the past 4 years?
Imagine a mother living on food stamps. Imagine a mother who's making minimum wage trying to feed children. They're killing us without killing us.
There is not a thing that comes to mind.
Anyway, I would love to hear all of your thoughts on this in the comments below. Please be sure to hit that like button. Make sure that you are subscribed. Keep it real, guys, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.